So we have Ryan Mohammed. Ryan Mohammed comes to us with a strong academic background, having completed his PhD in aquatic biology from the University of the West Indies in 2019, focusing on the pathology of freshwater catfish involved in the international ornamental trade. With a Master of Philosophy in Environmental Biology and a Bachelor's in Botany and Zoology, he has conducted extensive research and received additional aquaculture training in China. Ryan has also co-authored articles in international journals and has worked as a consultant in organizations such as FAO, UNESCO, UNEP, and IUCN. He's also made significant contributions as a course coordinator and acting curator at UE, supervising numerous biodiversity research projects. Please let us give a warm welcome to Ryan Mohammed.
Morning, everyone. Okay, good morning again. So mangroves, migration, and malaria. Okay, and to take a line from Jay-Z, we have 99 problems, and climate change might just be one. So what's the link? And that link is climate change. Now, to set the scene from where I speak from, we have a map of the Caribbean, and Trinidad is the southernmost island in the Caribbean archipelago. Our population at the last census was 1.4 million people, and we are a twin island state, Trinidad and Tobago. 60,000 people reside in Tobago. But now to get directly to mangroves. They form the major interface between our terrestrial ecosystems and our marine ecosystems. And it means that there you find a lot of brackish water habitats, and this gives rise to a wealth of biodiversity. Now let's touch on malaria. It's a vector-borne disease carried by the Anopheles mosquito. There's over 400 species of Anopheles mosquitoes, and about 100 of them can carry the Plasmodium parasite, which carries malaria. Now, Trinidad has multiple species of Anopheles mosquitoes, and the distribution of these mosquitoes are widespread, and this is not localized to where mangroves are. And if you look at the historical map of Trinidad, you see that where malaria previously existed, it is closely linked to where they found Anopheles mosquitoes, which is logical. But it has been a low incidence in the last 50 years. In dark brown, we see where the majority of Trinidad's population are located, and we have the two cities in Trinidad in relation to where the mangroves are. And the map on your right, you'll see where there's the majority of brackish water ecosystems. And now the brackish water ecosystems is linked directly to where typically you find your mangroves. The mangroves I speak of here is Rhizophora mangle, the red mangrove, and that particular species needs brackish water to exist. It's the coastal species of mangroves. Now a little bit on the migration issue I speak of. Given the recent political unrest in Venezuela, there's a mass exodus of the population of over 1 million people in the last decade or so. But more than 60,000 of these have migrated to Trinidad and Tobago within the last 5 years, which means potentially there's more Venezuelans in Trinidad and Tobago than Tobagonians. Now, what's that link between malaria and migration? Again, Trinidad's closest mainland neighbor is Venezuela. And up until, that should be 2017, that population, up until 2017, the prevalence of malaria in Venezuela was roughly 0.2%. So the assumption here is less than 100 new cases of malaria have come to Trinidad within the last 5 years. However, the World Health Organization still says our status in Trinidad is 0%. Now, To bring all of this back into one picture, we see that coastal development can lead to mangrove dieback. And again, the mangrove dieback I speak of here is the red mangrove. But with mangrove dieback, sometimes you have inland movement of mangrove, and this inland movement of mangrove distribution could also lead to other issues. So increased mangrove distribution is not necessarily a bad situation if the distribution is not detrimental to other ecosystems and other ecosystem services. Like previous presenters said, mangroves provide protection against storm surges, it provides sediment traps for sediment going into seagrass beds, etc. But inland mangrove spreading can lead to, and is also indicative of, saltwater intrusion inland. And this could indicate increase in salinity of our freshwater tables. It provides an issue with regards to agriculture production, particularly crop production, and it's also natural biodiversity. And herein lies our issues. So, like we said before, coastal development leads to mangrove dieback, and inward distribution of mangrove can lead to increase in brackish water habitats. And this, in turn, will lead to more habitats for Anopheles mosquitoes. Now, let's add our 20 carriers of malaria annually. And let's throw climate change into the mix, which gives rise to sea level rise, increased storm intensities and frequencies, and flooding. So collectively, we see climate change now becomes a driver for increased habitats for mosquitoes, and in particular, increased habitats for the Anopheles mosquitoes. With all of these issues combined, public health, humanitarian, socioeconomic issues would be our newest nightmare in the Caribbean. So, climate change is linked, but what's the solution? And the solution we see here is mitigation and adaptation. Additional pressures on the emerging infectious diseases in the Caribbean may soon no longer be the Caribbean will soon no longer be considered malaria-free. It means that we need to reevaluate our status of emerging infectious diseases, and then also increase investment. As we saw in the recent pandemic with COVID, the Caribbean and the rest of the world was not financially prepared or prepared overall to deal with new infectious diseases. So using the approach of the UN, where they looked at a One Health approach, we see that humanity's health is directly linked to environmental health, assuming this One Health philosophy. I use the example here of the Mayaro arbovirus. It has its origins in South and Central America, and it was a major, and it can be a major epidemic in the future. It is linked to the Himogus mosquito, which can have potential issues in the future. Now, like other arboviruses, such as chikungunya, Zika virus, these have led to other issues in the Caribbean. Now, Himogus mosquito was typically found in the tropical rainforest, but now with the increase in temperatures, particularly coastal temperatures, we now find this mosquito species in the mangroves as well. So, if we do not manage our coastal ecosystems, we can give rise to future issues. But we cannot change the political issues in Venezuela, or locally, we cannot prevent climate change. However, we can still manage our coastal ecosystems to avoid mangrove dieback. I know a lot of discussion was held at the SRI conference and even this week about reforestation using mangroves, but I believe we need to protect what we have there, because these mangrove ecosystems already have a major store of all of our carbon. Replanting a new mangroves ecosystem doesn't give you that same assurance, and it doesn't give that bank of carbon, because mangroves are one of the biggest carbon sequesters that we have. It's a carbon source, a carbon sink, sorry. So To protect our mangrove ecosystems, because so much carbon is already stored in that ecosystem, it protects and it ensures that we go towards a carbon zero footprint. And we also need to put systems in place to identify, isolate, and manage our vector-borne diseases. If these things are not put in place, I believe that the Caribbean will soon have new infectious diseases issues to deal with, and we need to consider these very, very soon. And lastly, illegal and legal migration is a regional issue, and it has to be addressed at the regional level. If not, again, we have 99 problems, and climate change will be only one. Thank you.
Thank you for that presentation. My question has to do with solid waste in the wetland environment. Was there any correlation between the proliferation or the existence of solid waste in those mangrove ecosystems and the presence of the mosquitoes there?
So most of the mangrove ecosystems that so the maps I produced there are mangroves based on vegetation layers, okay? Now, we know that there's solid waste in mangroves. In fact, a lot of the regions right off of Port-of-Spain, there's a major, at our capital, there's a major mangrove area, but that's also the site of our biggest city dump, our biggest dump. So there is an association between solid waste and mangroves. However, it is both managed and unmanaged. But with regards to if there's a link between solid waste, mangroves, and any other infectious disease, that was not considered. All right. Okay, thanks a lot.